On a bustling morning at a major international airport, travelers rushed to catch their flights, unaware that they were about to witness a moment that would make headlines around the world. A respected black CEO, known for her grace and philanthropy, stood quietly at the check-in counter, only to be singled out by a group of airline staff. What began as a few mocking remarks soon spiraled into something far more cruel, something no one expected to unfold in such a public place. By the end of the day, millions were outraged. The airline faced irreversible consequences, and the entire world was asking the same question: how could this have happened? For over 2 decades, Danielle Harris has established a reputation as a brilliant leader in the corporate world. Rising from a modest background, she became the first black woman to serve as the CEO of a billion-dollar logistics company. Known for her calm presence, strategic thinking, and unwavering dignity, Danielle often said that traveling was her way of reconnecting with ordinary people. Airports, she believed, were places where everyone, regardless of power or wealth, shared the same experience. That morning, she was flying to Chicago for a global trade conference, where she would deliver the keynote address. Her schedule was tight, and she had arrived at the airport dressed in a simple navy suit, carrying only a briefcase and her phone. Despite her success, she always chose to travel without an entourage. As she wheeled her small suitcase toward the check-in counter, she noticed a few employees whispering and glancing in her direction. At first, she thought little of it. After all, she was used to the occasional curious look. But there was something about their smirks and hushed laughter that felt different. The airline she was flying with had been facing criticism in recent months for its lack of diversity and previous incidents of poor treatment toward minority passengers. Rumors about toxic workplace culture and inappropriate jokes had circulated online. However, few believed it could be as bad as the stories claimed. Danielle stepped up to the counter, greeted the staff politely, and handed over her ticket. She couldn't have known that this ordinary moment, something millions of passengers do every day, was about to escalate into an incident that would shake the aviation industry to its core. The first signs of trouble appeared as Danielle waited for her boarding documents. A young employee behind the counter, barely hiding a smirk, glanced at her hair, a neatly styled crown of tight black curls. "That's quite a hairstyle for a businesswoman," he muttered under his breath. The colleague beside him chuckled. Danielle ignored it. She had encountered such remarks before and learned long ago not to react. But the laughter that followed, louder, more mocking, made other passengers glance over, some frowning in discomfort. Moments later, a supervisor joined the group, whispering something that made the younger staffers burst out laughing again. Danielle felt a flicker of unease but forced herself to focus on her itinerary. She had an important speech to deliver, and she wouldn't let a few immature employees shake her composure. As she moved to the gate area, however, the snickering continued. A flight attendant carrying a tablet slowed down as she passed by Danielle's seat, whispering to a coworker before both broke into sly grins. Their gazes lingered on her hair. Passengers nearby shifted in their seats, some awkwardly pretending not to notice. A few recorded short clips on their phones, sensing that something unusual, though not yet fully understood, was unfolding. When the boarding announcement was made, Danielle joined the line calmly, unaware that a series of calculated humiliations was about to begin. As she handed over her boarding pass, one of the crew members blocked her way. "Ma'am," he said in a tone that carried both false politeness and condescension, "we need you to step aside for an additional check." Danielle raised an eyebrow but complied, expecting a routine security procedure. Instead, she was escorted to a side area near the counter, where several staff members were already gathered. Their demeanor shifted from official to mocking, as if they were in on some private joke. It started with subtle remarks, questions about whether her hair was real, suggestions that it might need to be inspected for security, reasons. Danielle's patience began to fray, but she stayed silent, determined not to give them the satisfaction of seeing her rattled. Then, almost out of nowhere, one of the male staffers produced a pair of clippers, clearly taken from the lost and found bin. "Let's make it quick," he said to a ripple of laughter from the group. Passengers in the gate area turned to look, shocked at what they were seeing. A few raised their phones to record, while others exchanged whispers, unsure if this was some bizarre prank or a real act of discrimination. Danielle froze. Her dignity and decades of achievement suddenly meant nothing to the people in front of her. The humiliation was public, deliberate, and cruel. As she sat in the chair they pulled forward for her, her calm expression masked the storm of emotions beneath the surface. She knew this moment wasn't just about her. It was about every person who had ever been reduced to a target of ridicule because of the color of their skin. The crowd at the gate grew silent as the clippers buzzed to life with a harsh metallic hum. Passengers who had been busy scrolling through their phones now stared in disbelief, some gasping while others fumbled to record the scene. Danielle sat perfectly still, her back straight and chin slightly raised. Her expression was calm, almost unnervingly so, though her eyes betrayed a deep sadness. The female flight attendant stepped forward, a smirk on her face as if this were a casual game. She pressed the clippers to Danielle's temple, and with a sharp swipe, a lock of her curls fell to the floor. The sound of the clippers echoed in the vast gate area. A few passengers called out in protest, demanding that the staff stop. A mother shielded her child's eyes, whispering something about how wrong this was. But the staff didn't flinch. They laughed as each pass of the clippers stripped away another part of Danielle's identity. A man in a business suit stepped forward, his phone raised. "This is going live," he roared, his voice shaking with anger. Several others joined him, recording from different angles. Within minutes, the live stream had begun to circulate online, drawing thousands of horrified viewers. Danielle didn't resist. She knew any sudden move could be twisted against her. Instead, she sat with the quiet strength that had carried her through years of breaking barriers in boardrooms. Her silence only made the scene more haunting, a dignified leader reduced to a spectacle for a cruel audience. The final patch of hair fell to the floor. The flight attendant stepped back, clearly proud of her work. At the same time, one of the male staffers joked about how Danielle finally looked like she belonged in economy. Gasps rippled through the gate area. Some passengers shouted at the staff, demanding they stop. Others turned their cameras toward the airline logo emblazoned above the counter, making sure the world would know exactly who was responsible. As the last clip of hair dropped, Danielle slowly lifted her gaze toward the crowd, her eyes calm but piercing. It was not the look of a victim, but of someone who had already decided that this would not be the end of the story. By the time Danielle stepped out of the boarding gate, her scalp bare under the harsh airport lights, the video of her humiliation had already gone viral. Within hours, hashtags calling for justice trended across social media platforms. News outlets interrupted their regular programming to show the footage, sparking outrage around the globe. Civil rights groups immediately demanded a federal investigation. Commentators called the incident not just an act of discrimination, but a blatant display of public cruelty. Former employees of the airline came forward with their own stories, describing a toxic culture where racist jokes and harassment had been brushed aside for years. The airline's board of directors scrambled to contain the damage, but their statements, offering regret over the misunderstanding, only fueled the anger. Videos from passengers at the gate revealed every moment in painful detail. The smirks of the staff, the laughter, the clippers buzzing against Danielle's head. There was no misunderstanding. Under immense public pressure, the airline's stock price plummeted. Major corporate partners cut ties, citing ethical concerns. Within weeks, federal regulators launched an investigation into the company's practices. Sponsors withdrew support and lawsuits piled up. Facing billions in potential damages, the airline declared bankruptcy and ceased operations altogether. Danielle, meanwhile, chose not to retreat from the spotlight. She addressed the public in a calm, measured statement. "This was not just about me. This was about the way we as a society still allow prejudice to humiliate and silence people. That must change." Her words resonated deeply with millions. Universities invited her to speak about resilience and dignity. Advocacy groups hailed her as a symbol of grace under fire, and at the next global trade conference, the one she had been traveling to when the incident occurred, she received a standing ovation that lasted several minutes. The airport where the incident took place later unveiled a plaque, not in memory of the airline, but in honor of Danielle and others who had faced discrimination while traveling. And so, the story that began with a cruel joke ended with a powerful reminder. Dignity can be attacked, but never taken, unless we allow it to be. What about you? If you had been there that morning, would you have stayed silent or stood up?